And I want y'all to understand this tonight if you never understood it before. The rich have always gotten richer in America. The poor have always gotten poor in America. But I want you to understand something. There's a small percentage of the poor that makes a pivot and they decide to step on the other side. They decide that they will be the last generation of that bloodline that will not understand what freedom is like. They understand that they are the last person in that bloodline that will go without. They understand that they are the last person in that bloodline that will get it out the mud and not out of the market. As I think about every 4 years, this country goes through this change of power, this transition under a new regime. And with that regime comes a shift in policies. With that regime, some people get fearful. With that regime, some people get intimidated. But what I want to ask you is, under your own family's blueprint, what regime are you impeaching? I say that because when we look at our families, we have been held captive by the same regime for generations. We've been under the same strongholds for generations. And so when we think about wealth, when we think about freedom, it is through the lens of the old regime. And I'm not talking politics here. Like, we don't have to wait every 4 years before we transition power. We don't have to wait every 4 years before we start to develop a new ideology, a new philosophy around money. Like, a new regime represents new possibilities, but the new regime is only in place when a new leader is bold enough to step up and say, it's time for a change. And so to back that up from a philosophical, from a history and from a biblical lens, we look at Moses standing in front of the Red Sea. That's a new regime because while fear was present, faith was also at the forefront. When we look at Winston Churchill, we talk about a man that's coming to take over a country that's on the brink of collapse, but the new leadership allowed that new country to have faith and to have, watch this, Jose, the audacity to believe that they can be led a new way. When we think about David, right, a new regime, Saul didn't know he was about to be replaced, but a new regime came, right? Like, David came to not just bring lunch, but tradition, like to put him in place of legacy. We talking about a new regime, and the one thing I understood about a new regime is it can provoke fear in the old one. Change makes us all buckle a little bit. Last week we talked about, Jose, we talked about being comfortable with the yoke that has been holding you down. Well, when you ask a person, like, are you ready to break the yoke? When you ask a person, do you really want financial freedom? When you ask a person, what does financial freedom look like to you? I promise you, for a second, Jose, they'll go quiet. They become a bit intimidated by answering that. Because when you truly say what the financial freedom looks like to you, watch this, Jose, your thought process now gives birth to the words that you speak. When you ask a person out the gate and you say, yo, What does financial freedom look like to you? They hesitate for a minute. Because while they've said they want to be free financially, while they said they want to break free from the job, they never actually put the thought in place of what this financial freedom actually looks like to them. Because when you do that, you've now given birth to something that you're not held responsible for. We're talking about a new regime, y'all. I'm not talking about Trump. I'm not talking about Joe Biden. I'm not talking about Barack Obama. I'm not talking about George Bush. I'm talking about you in your own leadership role. You represent the new regime. What are the policies and procedures, the processes, the systems, the government, the leadership board? What are the new things that you implement, not to make America great, but to make your last name great? Ha ha! Right? When we look at, listen, Jose. When we look at Donald Trump, we're looking at a man who says, this is what America looks like to him. These are the systems, these are the things that he feels are necessary for him to make the country look like the way he wants it to look. Guess what? What do you have in your mind that makes you and your family look great? We get so caught up in politics. This ain't right. This is right. This ain't wrong. We start hating each other. We start not liking each other because of what you. But check this out. What can we do inside of our own? Like, watch this, Jose. What is the revolution that we have to have in our own family? Who we gotta unseat? What type of layers of trauma and what type of layers of thought processes that we gotta take away and impeach? Who's on a board of directors in your family that you got to impeach? What traditions have you held on to that doesn't serve you, that hold you down? I remember me and my girl, Elena, she's a real close friend of mine. And I remember I was reading this book one time, Jose, and I ran across this story about a family with a ham. And she always tell me this, Jose. She always say, you gotta tell them the story about the ham. She been telling me this for 4 years. And the story was simple. I can't remember what book it was because I don't want to take ownership of it. But it was simple, Jose. One Christmas, a little girl goes to her mother. She see her mama baking the ham. And what her mother did was, her mother cut the ends off the ham. And the little girl said, Ma, why are you cutting the ends off the ham? And she said, I don't know. I got it from your grandmother. And she said, go ask your grandmother. So the girl went to the living room and she asks her grandmother, Grandmother, my mama is in there. She's baking the ham and I saw her cut the ends off and she told me to ask you. She said, Grandmother, why do we cut the ends off the ham? And the grandmother says, you know what? I got it from my mother, your great-grandmother. So the little girl goes, she asks her great-grandmother, she said, Great-grandmother, my mama was cutting the ham and she cut the ends off the ham. And she didn't know why. And she told me to ask my grandmother. And I asked my grandmother, and my grandmother didn't know. She said she got it from you. And so I'm asking you. And she said, well, I got it from my mother, which is your great-great-grandmother. And she was a slave. And so they didn't have room in a pot for the entire ham. So they cut the ends off so that the ham could fit. Now, generations later, they still was doing the same thing. But watch this, Jose. The ham size stayed the same, but the pots got bigger, but we still treated the ham the same exact way. What traditions no longer serve you? What traditions are actually holding you captive? People looking at the market and they're fearful of it. And I want y'all to understand this tonight. If you never understood it before, the rich have always gotten richer in America. The poor have always gotten poorer in America. But I want you to understand something. There's a small percentage of the poor that makes a pivot and they decide to step on the other side. They decide that they will be the last generation of that bloodline that will not understand what freedom is like. They understand that they are the last person in that bloodline that will go without. They understand that they are the last person in that bloodline that will get it out the mud and not out of the market. So I ask you this question. Jose, they're saying, because Donald Trump in office, Trap, like, we gonna get this money. I'm saying under Joe Biden, I got that money. I'm saying that if you take whoever president out, as long as we not just in a deep, full-on recession or depression, we gonna get that money. We gonna build our spirit up too. Because what good is it for man to gain the whole world and lose his soul? We ain't never got to lose our soul. We can't serve two gods. We know that. We're going to serve the one God who is the actual source, and then we're going to use the resources that he gave us. I want you to understand that it don't matter who in office. Morally, what makes sense to you? Stop getting so caught up in somebody saying something that triggers you emotional, and now you on a full-fledged essay on somebody's page who you do not know, arguing with somebody that you will probably never see in your natural life. You wasting time arguing on social media when you can just switch the app and go to the one that's making you some money. Okay, they missed that part, Jose. They missed that part. You arguing with somebody you will probably never see in your natural life. Why not just close that app and then open up the other app where you're making the money at, and then go figure out how to print more money in that app? Right? Like, okay, for the people that don't understand it, right? Like, stop arguing with people on social media and go to the money apps. Go to the E-Trades, go to the Charles Schwabs, go to the Robinhoods, go to the Coinbases, go to the apps where you make the money at, and then argue with the people that's trying to take the money from you. And when I mean argue with them, I mean put yourself in position with the plays that help you pivot and switch your perspective. Go do that. I promise you, if you spend more time on the apps that help you make the money, you're going to disregard the apps that's taking money from you. Because I promise you, every second that you waste is a second that you are giving someone else your money. I thought about something the other day, bro. And I said, I looked at a post I made, Jose. And in the post I said, with this going on and that going on, and most times we get lost, watch this, in the idea of a thing before it happens. We get lost in the idea of what we think is about to happen, and then we start arguing with people who are, watch this, Jose, who are also arguing with us on an idea of what they think is going to happen. And nobody has the proof of what's really going to happen. And I realized that I never take place in those arguments because I never take place in those arguments because I'm looking at the world from a different perspective. What I've realized is that when you still starving, you operate from a starving mentality. You operate from a mentality where you feel like the world is against you. You operate where you always standing on edge. But I realized something, Jose. I'm hungry, but I ain't starving. And because I ain't starving, I'm not as emotionally tied to the things that go on in this world. I just try to position myself and my family so that we can navigate whatever happens. And it's because I believe in God. I know that one thing, Jose, I'm gonna never be in a compromising position. And I realized that. And so I had to be more empathetic. I had to be more empathetic for the people that was in a starving position, because I remember days when I was starving, bro. And when I was starving, I was on edge about everything, Jose. Because it's kind of hard to have peace when you're starving. It's kind of hard to have peace when you're starving. It's kind of hard to see the world from a different lens when you're starving. It's kind of hard to be laid back and peaceful when you're starving. It's kind of hard to be patient when you're starving. It's kind of hard to calculate 5 moves ahead when you're starving. It's kind of hard to give when you're starving. It's kind of hard not to take offense when you're starving. I'm operating under a new regime. I'm operating from a place where I can be patient with life. I'm operating from a place where I can wait and let God talk to me and download the message. And then once the message is downloaded, then I can take action. Watch this. I operate from a place where even when I'm getting attacked, I don't get emotionally evolved. I can hold my peace. I'm operating from a place where I don't get offended. I'm operating from a place where somebody can have entitlement about what they thought I should have done, and I'll be more empathetic to what they're saying. I'm patient to what they're saying. Not saying that they're right, not saying that they're wrong, but I just understand the place in which you operating from. And the place at which you operating from is causing you to be emotional and and your emotion is not really toward me. Your emotion is toward the position that you're in. And so for me, the reason why I want so many of us to leverage this market the way that we supposed to is because the market will provide a sense of safety. Yes. The market puts you in a position where you don't feel entitled for nothing. It's a one-man sport. It's a one-woman sport. And now, Jose, I just go through life saying, nobody owes me anything but me. I owe myself. No one owes me nothing. No one is entitled to do anything for me, because the market puts me in a position where I have now taken full control of not just my life, but my financial destiny. I'm under a new regime. I'm under a new regime We got a new blueprint. We got a new process that we go through when we make decisions. It's like the woman with the issue of blood, right? Watch this, Jose. All she really wanted to do was touch it. That's all she wanted to do. Watch this. She didn't feel like Christ owed her anything. He wasn't entitled to bless her. While so many people felt entitled, she just said, I'm going to take it up on myself because, watch this, a new thought took place in her brain that said, if I touch it, everything else will change. If I touch it. And so watch this, Jose. We don't understand that, bro. Like, she had the issue of blood for a long time. She was weak in moments, Jose. She had to gather up herself. She had to take authority over her own life, and she had to put something in her mind that said, if I go through this, now watch this, we know that Christ is coming, so we know that she got to do what? Fight through the crowd. When you got an issue of blood, you weak. When you losing blood in your blood, like you weak, you don't have what it take to fight through the crowd. You don't got it what it take. And you got to remember, at this time, people understand that Christ is doing all kind of amazing things. So they there. They got people that feel entitled. You got people that won't see just to see. You got people that's hating that won't say what he can't do. And she said, I'm going to fight through all that to get a touch. Here's what happened, yo. A new regime took place in her brain. She had to pivot. She had to go from saying, woe is me. She had to go from saying, I'm going to die like this. She had to go from, like, remember, people ain't even want to deal with her. She down. She out. She on the verge of giving up. But she went within herself. And she told herself, if I just touch it, if I touch it, something else is going to take over me. If I touch it, I'm going to be cleansed. If I touch it, I'm going to be right. If I touch it, watch this, Jose, the word that I really want, I'm going to be healed. If I touch it, I'm going to be healed. So why in her mind, she thinking it's all about the touch. In her mind, she thinking it's all about the touch. What she don't realize is the minute that she said, if I touch it, I'm going to be healed, she was healed. Because it wasn't about the touch. It was about the faith. It was about putting in the work. Listen to me. Before she touched, she had to believe. Once she impregnated herself with the belief, she had to do the work. What was the work? I had to get up. I had to walk. I had to fight through the crowd. That alone made her worthy of the healing. Okay, watch this, Jose. It's not about the touch, Jose. It's about the belief that helps you triumph. It's not about the touch. It's the belief that triggers the triumph. We're gonna take it slow right here. So I want y'all to really get that. It's not about the touch. It's the belief that triggers the triumph. Watch this, Jose. The triumph positions you for the testimony. Okay, watch this. It's not about the touch. She fought for the touch. But it wasn't about the touch. It was the idea that she had in her brain that consumed her, that overwhelmed her, that actually healed her. In her mind, she was like, yo, if I touch it, this gonna happen, this gonna happen, this gonna, okay, if I touch it, the blood gonna be right. If I touch it, I'm gonna be able to see the world. If I touch it, people gonna accept me. If I touch it, I'm gonna stop being an outcast. If I touch it, I can probably have babies. If I touch it, I can probably meet a man. If I touch it, I can probably get married. If I touch it, there's a new type of anointing that's gonna come on my life. If I touch it, she put so many scenarios in her head. What happened was she didn't even think about being sick no more. She thought about her life after the touch, before she touched him. She thought about her life after the touch, before she touched him. The belief triggers the triumph. The triumph positions you for the testimony. Okay, how does that make sense? Every time something happens in the world, watch this. Instead of your belief triggering your triumph, your belief in something wrong triggers your trauma. When something happens, Donald Trump in office, the minute the belief in what you thought was gonna happen triggered your trauma. You ain't look at it from the perspective of, oh man, I don't care who in office, we're gonna get their money. That's how I looked at it. Bro, Joe Smo could have been running for president. I'd have been like, hey, bro, hey, that's above my pay grade to think about all the wrong stuff he gonna do. What is in my pay grade? What I can't, because once you cast your vote, you've done all you can do. Once you cast your vote, you have done what is required of you as a citizen in America. As an American citizen, you have maximized your power once you vote. That's the ultimate power in America. It's a democracy. You can vote for who you say you won't be in office. We're not gonna go, but that you've now optimized your power. Now what happens is, once I optimize and utilize the power given to me, the next thing I need to do is position myself so that me and my family can benefit no matter what they do. Oh, you selfish. It ain't all about money. No. It's not all about money. But no matter what happens, you are responsible for you and your family. So when a person get in office who you don't like, what happens is, instead of you having the belief system of, it don't matter who's in office, I did what I can humanly do. I'm going to pray on it. I'm going to ask for protection. I'm going to ask for guidance. But no matter who's in office, I'm going to position me and mine. But instead of doing that, your belief in the worst outcome triggered the trauma. And so now you went down a rabbit hole of attacking everybody you see. Your trauma triggered Trump. No, let me rephrase that. Trump triggered your trauma. Trump triggered your trauma. Instead of saying, bro, guess what? The market made money under Bush. The market made money under Obama. The market made money under Trump. The market made money under Biden. What's gonna change? Yep, politics gonna go this way, this gonna go that way. I'm not gonna let that put put me in the rabbit hole where my trauma is triggered, I'm gonna let that put me in a position where my optimism. So from this day moving forward, y'all, we under a new regime. We under a new regime. Moving forward, y'all, we ain't giving nothing the power to trigger our trauma. Everything we do and everything we hear triggers our triumph. Everything we do, everything we hear is positioning us to be better. Everything we do, everything we hear is positioning us for freedom. We always one investment away. I say we always one investment away. It ain't I don't have enough money. It ain't I'm broke right now. We are always one investment away from freedom. We under a new regime, y'all. We under a new regime, y'all. And it's up to you. Each and every last one of us, we got a responsibility. Not just as Americans, not just as Canadians, not just as Hispanic, not just as Australians, as a people who are living and breathing on God's green earth. We have a responsibility to position our families for greatness. Because if not, we just add on to the trauma of being stuck in the same position generation after generation after generation. It's on you. It's on you. And with that comes a bold, audacious, kind of arrogant outlook on life. Because the people around you gonna look at you like, how dare you have that audacity to feel like you could be the first generation millionaire? How can you have the audacity to say that your kid's gonna be a millionaire before mine? How can you have the audacity to say you're gonna retire before the world says you're supposed to retire? How can you have the audacity to buy that real estate? How can you have the audacity to play the options market? How can you have the audacity to build that company from nothing? How can you have the audacity to not be on welfare? How can you have the audacity to not be on food stamps? How can you have the audacity to believe that you are the one who can change your family's outlook? How can you have that audacity? Because your faith will trigger your triumph. We under a new regime, y'all. 2025, we under a new regime. Somebody new came in office yesterday. And guess what? 4 years from now, somebody else new gonna get in office. And guess what? 4 years after that, if that person don't repeat, somebody else new gonna get in office. And guess what? After that, if that person don't repeat, somebody else new gonna get in office. Guess what? Until the day that we die, somebody else new gonna get in office. Guess what? Until the day that we die, we're gonna have to pay some type of taxes. Guess what? Until the day that we die, they're gonna keep changing the rules of the game. Guess what? Until the day that we die, they're gonna keep having policies and government that's gonna affect us one way or the other. Ain't nothing we can do about that, y'all. It's gonna happen. But guess what we can't control? We can control our family's financial destiny, our family's financial burden, our family's financial positioning. We under a new regime, y'all.